You know, most of the Western world, whenever they think about missions or ministry, they usually think about, whenever it comes to bringing other people to the Lord, they usually think about it in terms of debating, especially here in the Western world, the United States and Europe. Most of the focus tends to be on what do I need to know theologically. A lot of people won't even go in to do evangelism, or won't even go to do any kind of like talking to people on the streets, talking to their friend, because they're so worried they're not going to know what to say, how to respond to a lot of the questions. Because the truth is, a lot of the questions are really difficult and they can be complicated. When we lead mission teams, it's amazing because probably the top question we get asked, aside from is, are there any gluten-free menu options on our mission trip, is what do I need to prepare to debate? Because in the Western world, whenever people try to win people to the Lord, debating tends to be the way it goes, the way that people think. And so because of that, there's a lot of thought on the theological things and wanting to have all the right answers and be able to answer the right questions and all that kind of stuff. But did you know that 80% of the people in the world receive the Lord through a miraculous event? It isn't through debate. We have a tendency to focus on debate. We have a tendency to focus on having all the right answers. And because of that, it's amazing, because nations that focus on the theological side, that focus on the questions and the answers and having all your ducks in a row and having all the perfect theology and memorizing all these verses, did you know those are the countries where the church is shrinking? But nations that are more focused on the presence and power of God, those are the nations that are having some of the greatest revival. China has the fastest growing church on the planet right now because of all the miraculous events that are happening. It isn't because people are going and debating. It isn't because people are going and having all the perfect answers. It's because whenever they go into a place, the love of God permeates that place. The love of God touches people in that location, and they come to the Lord. We have, in these past several months, it's been incredible the places that we've been. When we were in Nepal, the explosion of God's power and presence in Nepal is actually, it's amazing. One of the ministries that we were working with, or I should say the ministry that we were working with, they have had incredible growth. They've, over the past, it's about 20 years now that they've been doing ministry there. They've had like over 30,000 people come to the Lord. Right now they've got, I believe it's 72 or 74 church plants that are going on. There's incredible growth, incredible things that the Lord is doing, and it is all done by miraculous events. The pastor was telling me miracles happen for them every single day. One of my favorite things is talking about some of the crazier miracles. I like to see God move in the wildest way possible. I like to go beyond what we normally see. So on one of our trips, and I don't know if I've uploaded the video on this yet. I will soon if I haven't. But there's one particular part where we had to go to one of the main churches we were speaking at. To do that, we had to sit on top of a bus, a school bus, ride through the rivers for over an hour. It was about 2 hours riding through rivers on top of a school bus, and then we had to climb a mountain. And so as we were riding on this school bus with this pastor, I said, have you ever seen anybody raised from the dead? Because there's lots of other miracles, there's lots of other crazy things that happen, but for me, I'm fascinated by that, because I've seen lots of other miracles. I've seen all kinds of stuff happen, cancer and AIDS be healed, and all that kind of stuff. But I haven't ever seen somebody who was dead come back to life by the name of Jesus, or any other way, actually. And so that's something that I prayed, I asked God, let me do that. I want to do that too. So whenever I get a chance to talk to these guys who are way above me in the ranks, I like to ask, have you seen it? And this pastor there in Nepal, he just told me the most incredible story. It was so awesome. He said, as a matter of fact, I have, and one of my other pastors that we were with as well, he's like, that guy over there has as well. And his story was, he talked about how whenever he had been called to go pray for a girl who had died a few hours earlier, and he was at a church service, went to go pray for the girl. And while he was there, the girl was dead when he arrived. She'd been dead for a few hours. And he thought, she's gone. But he said that while he was there, the Lord spoke to him. And this is going to be a little bit weird, but this is the story. This is what he told me. And this is how God moves sometimes. There's all kinds of different forces at work. It's a whole crazy thing. But he said God showed him that on her thigh, that there was a worm that had burrowed into her thigh and had cut off something, nerve circulation or something like that. And that is what had caused her to die. But that if they were to remove that worm, she would come back. That's what the Lord showed him. So she was fully dressed because they were going to, they were getting her ready for burial and all that kind of stuff. And he told them, he said, show her thigh. And they told her brother, she's dead. I mean, we can't do that. She's gone. It was very similar to the story whenever Jesus said, she's not dead, she's sleeping. And they all mocked him and laughed and said, she's gone. Forget about it. So he said, no, remove the clothing from that area of her thigh. Show us her thigh. God is about to do something. So they pulled down that little area, and there was actually, in fact, a little hole in her thigh that nobody had seen. And this is Nepal, so it's not like, U.S. hospitals. You're out in the mountains, okay? You don't have all the professional health care that we do here. They saw the little hole, and he said, bring some tweezers. There's a worm in there. Pull it out. They went and pulled out this worm. He said it was the most amazing thing. So they pulled out this worm, and whenever they pulled out the worm, the girl goes, and she came back to life, and this incredible move of God happened. And their whole ministry has been fueled by these kinds of moves of God. I mean, that's one story in daily miracles that are happening in this ministry in Nepal. I mean, this is all over the place. In Thailand, where I was in Thailand the week before I was in Nepal. That we were with the ministry there called Beautiful Feet. Some of the most incredible stuff. I mean, this guy takes heroin addicts, drug addicts, brings them into his home. It's himself, his wife, and his daughters. They bring them into their home. They sold everything they had. He's Thai, but he used to live in the States. He sold everything he had in the States when he got saved, moved back to Thailand, bought a little piece of land, and has a little farm there. And he brings in these people. He has connections with the prisons. He has connections with the local hospitals, and they partner with him even though they're Buddhist organizations, not because he's a great theologian, not because he's an eloquent person. He's not this, the perfect speaker. He doesn't go in a well-dressed suit. As a matter of fact, if you saw a picture of him, he has a ponytail and he's wearing the long shorts and all this kind of just stuff you would not expect from a man of his stature in the Lord. But because of what he has done in the Lord, he brings these people in. When I was there just a couple of months ago, myself and my friend Curtis, who travels with us, is so incredible because he had a guy there who he had brought in just like 2 or 3 days before we got there. When he came into the ministry with this minister, his name is Pat. With Pat, the guy was a full-blown heroin addict. He was basically pushed into Pat's ministry by a friend who had also been rescued by Pat from drugs. Came in. He'd been there for a few days. We were there for a week. Within that week that we were there, he was completely delivered from heroin addiction. In 3 days, he was completely delivered. And by the end of the week that we were there, he was preaching in the prisons with us. It was the most incredible thing. And he wasn't just preaching. I mean, it was a full-blown testimony of the gospel of God, of Jesus in his life, and it was so powerful. It was absolutely incredible the way God was moving. So these moves of God isn't about having great theology or having perfect everything worked out. It's about being able to move in the power and presence of God. I remember whenever I lived in Turkey, and this is a story from, I don't know, it was like 15 years ago, because I lived in Turkey for 2 years. That was my first stint as a missionary in Istanbul. And when I was there was a guy from Sri Lanka who was in Turkey serving as a missionary. And while we were there, I got a chance one night. This was towards the end of my stay there when I was about to leave and I was going to go to Central America. I had the opportunity to share with him, and he told me his story, and it was so incredible. He had been a very wealthy businessman, had no interest in the Lord. He was serving other gods, all this kind of stuff. And then he got cancer, and he was supposed to die. They told him, you only have a few months to live. So he went to all the Hindu temples and did all the different things trying to get healed of this cancer that he had. And eventually he ended up meeting a missionary, learned about Jesus, and he went to Jesus himself, and he prayed and he said, Jesus, if you're real, if it really is you, please heal me and I will dedicate my life to you. And he did. I mean, Jesus healed this man of cancer, brought him to his feet, to the throne of grace. The man got saved. The man got completely healed, gave up his business, gave up everything he had, and he moved to Turkey to become a missionary. And he was there for years. I don't know if he's still there. I didn't see him this last trip just a couple of months ago. But it is absolutely amazing. You see, it isn't so much about having all the right answers. It's, do you have the presence of God in your life? Does the miraculous happen in your life? Whenever God moves on your behalf, it becomes evident. This is one of my favorite things, because I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the theological ducks in a row that are just, I know perfectly the answer to every single question. There are plenty of things that we all think about, we all wonder about. But what I do understand is the key factor of having the presence of God in your life, having the love of God in your life. And when you are able to walk into a location that God moves on your behalf. We're all still growing, we're all still learning, but once you get that one fact, once you get that one point, it will take such a burden off of you. It isn't about the power of being able to answer every question. It's about the power of a miracle in your life, about the power of the miraculous in your life. Does God move in you? If you have the presence of God in your life, if you move in your life, I remember just a few days ago, I was talking to somebody and they were really critical and they were really attacking me about some stuff. And so we were doing this on Messenger and we were talking back and forth. And so I told him, he was an atheist and he was saying, you can't believe in this, blah, blah, blah. You don't have all the right evidence and you got this and this and this. So I actually wrote him back and I said, look, I know that I don't have all the answers. I can't respond to all of these questions. So what I can tell you is I know what I've seen. I have seen God move. My wife, she had a tumor in her head and her pituitary gland. And I saw the MRIs and I saw it was there one time and I saw it 2 days later and it was gone. I have seen God miraculously help us over and over again throughout my life, especially throughout these years as a missionary. Impossible situations in really dangerous nations where things should have happened. Something bad should have happened to me, and God miraculously just pulled me out of it. I have seen with my own 2 eyes God do these things, and it is because of that move of God in my life. It's because I have seen it. It isn't because I theologically understand, because I don't understand everything, but I have seen God move, and that's why I'm able to believe so concretely in Him. So the power of the miraculous in us, that is what allows. We have to get past being all of the study. We're going to do this systematic study of all these different things. We have to go beyond that and learn to just feed on the Word of God, feed on the presence of God, the bread of the presence, get it into our lives. And then once we start to see God move, once we start to experience His presence by abiding in Him day by day, that is whenever we get to see the power of the miraculous. And that is what brings people to the Lord. It's great to study. I have nothing against studying. Whenever there are certain topics I want to know, I do study. But whenever I approach the scriptures, I approach it more as just I want to feed in the river. I want to just lay in the river. I want to drink from the water of the river of life. And then let that flow through me and let God move. And remember, 80% of people come to the Lord because of a miraculous event. Only 20% do so from other means. So to have a higher percentage of success in ministry is about being able to walk in the presence of God. That comes from being with Him. If you've enjoyed this video, please please subscribe, and leave any comments below. If you felt like if you want to know more about this, if I left any unanswered questions, if I didn't really explain it very well, let me know. I would be more than happy to respond. God bless. Stay tuned.